Hello, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to the second webinar in Tannenbaum's 6-part World Olympics for All webinar series. This webinar is based on Unit 2 of our World Olympics curriculum, Learning About the World. I'd like to thank the Nissan Foundation and the Pine Tree Foundation of New York for their generous support. We'll be using the poll and question features throughout the webinar in order to get input from you, so I look forward to your participation. Note that this webinar is being recorded, and all registrants will be emailed a link to the recording soon after the live session ends. I will be reading aloud some of your comments from the question box so that you can hear from one another, and your participation can get captured by the recording. Speaking of the question box, please take note of your control panel. It is where you will find your question box, which can be used to ask me questions or answer my questions, and your handouts, which include your certificate of participation. My name is Kim Kaiserman. I'm an Education Program Associate with Tannenbaum, and I'm here today with my colleague Mark Fowler, who will be helping me answer your questions and providing you with links for more information. For those of you who may not be familiar with us, Tannenbaum is a nonprofit organization that bridges religious differences and combats religious prejudice. Based in New York City, we work in schools, healthcare settings, workplaces, and areas of armed conflict. I want to emphasize that we are secular and non-sectarian, which means that we don't promote or denigrate any religion or any particular belief system. Let's start by finding out what you know about the Olympics. Use the polling feature to answer each question. Question 1. In what year did the modern Olympic Games begin? Question 2. How many countries participated in the 2012 Summer Olympic Games in London? Question 3. Where will the next Summer Olympic Games take place? And finally, question 4. Where will the next Winter Olympic Games take place? Okay, we'll go over the answers to these questions in just a few minutes. First, a few words about the World Olympics curriculum. Tannenbaum developed the World Olympics curriculum because the Olympic Games are a powerful example of an event that brings people with both vast differences and remarkable similarities together in the spirit of respect and goodwill. The curriculum capitalizes on this exciting and unifying theme to develop students' academic, physical, and socio-emotional skills. Just a reminder, the first 100 people who registered for this webinar series will receive a free copy of the curriculum by the end of the month. So if you registered by January 19th, 2016 at 1 p.m., then that's you. The curriculum is made up of 5 units plus instructions for putting together your own culminating Olympic event. For more details, including the number of hours of instruction, please see the handout entitled World Olympics Units and Activities Chart, which can be found in the handout section of your control panel. Here are the objectives of Unit 2, as well as of today's webinar. There are 6 lessons in Unit 2, and we're going to touch on 5 of them in today's webinar. Here they are, along with the approximate number of instruction hours. These lessons introduce the Olympic Games and help students prepare for their own classroom or school-wide Olympics. 3 of these lessons are included in your handouts: signs and symbols of the Olympics, researching countries for the final Olympics, and Olympic mascots. Now let's go over the answers to our pop quiz. Number 1, in what year did the modern Olympic Games begin? For those who said 1896, you were correct. That was the beginning of the modern Olympic Games. The ancient Olympic Games took place from 776 BCE to 393 CE, so for over 1,000 years. Okay, number 2. How many countries participated in the 2012 Summer Olympic Games in London? If you said 205, you were correct. The 2012 Games boasted 205 countries with a total of 10,900 athletes. And by the way, the 1904 Games in St. Louis had the fewest countries. Only 12 participated that year. Number 3, where will the next Summer Olympics take place? Well, this was an easy one. Everybody said the right answer: Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, in 2016. Rio is actually the first city in South America to be chosen by the International Olympic Committee. Our final question: where will the next Winter Olympics take place? If you said Pyongyang, South Korea, you are correct. That will be in 2018, and following that, the 2020 Summer Olympics will be held in Tokyo, Japan, and the 2022 Winter Olympics will be held in Beijing, China. So let's talk about Lesson 1, which introduces this kind of basic factual information about the Olympics. Students learn about the Olympics and get excited about holding their own classroom-wide or school-wide Olympics. To structure students learning about the Olympics, you can create a KWL chart to find out what students know, what they want to know, and later what they learned. Once students have developed questions that they would like to have answered, allow them to do research to answer their questions by using the internet, taking the class on a trip to the library, or even just bringing books like these to class. You can also find some great videos on the Olympics YouTube channel. Mark will share the link to the YouTube channel with you, as well as the links to these 3 books. The goal of Lesson 1 is to teach students the basics about the Olympics, including the history of the Olympics, the ideals on which it is based, the athletes who take part, how the host cities are selected, and what sports are played. Students will enjoy learning about the great diversity of sporting events, which is part of the diversity of the Olympics. By the way, the 2016 Summer Olympics in Rio will feature 42 different sports, and the 2018 Winter Olympics in Pyongyang will feature 15 different sports. In addition to diversity in sporting events, the Olympics celebrates diverse athletes and diverse kinds of athletic achievement. Use the question box to answer this question: what are the Paralympics and what are the Special Olympics? I'll give you a minute or so to answer. So far, I am not seeing any answers to the question.
I actually can see some on my screen. The Paralympics are for injured Olympians. Paralympics for people with physical disabilities. The Paralympics for physically challenged, and Special Olympics for mentally challenged. Paralympics are for those who are disabled by loss of limb. Special Olympics are for those who have a mental handicap. So the answers seem to be in pretty much the same arena.
Okay, great. You are correct. The Paralympics, which started in 1948, are held right after the Olympics in the host city. Initially, they were a way of including injured World War II veterans. And today, they include athletes who are amputees, have mobility disabilities, visual disabilities, and cerebral palsy. The Special Olympics, which were started by Eunice Kennedy Shriver in 1968, includes athletes with intellectual disabilities. There are also the Deaf Olympics, which were first held in Paris in 1924. They were actually the first international sporting event for athletes who were differently abled. So you can share the history of these games with students, as well as inspiring stories of athletes who have excelled in the Paralympics, Special Olympics, and Deaf Olympics. And by the way, we'll be coming back to stories of groundbreaking Olympic athletes in Webinar 4. At the end of Lesson 1, students can bring their learning to life by holding an Olympic quiz show or creating a model of the Olympic Stadium. So moving on to Lesson 2, Signs and Symbols of the Olympics, please use the question box to answer what signs and symbols are important in your life. And I'll give you a minute to answer this one.
Okay, so I see some answers coming in. The cross, the crucifix, the cross for my spiritual life is another response.
Any other symbols that are important in your life?
So we have the peace sign, different sports logos, family business logo, the equal sign is another response that we've gotten. Family crests are important symbols. The infinity sign, the cross, the golden arches for a quick snack, the cross and my college seal, the Boys and Girls Club, the family crest. Those are some of the answers that we've received.
Okay, I'll move on to the next question. Do you wear any signs or symbols? Do you display them in your home? Again, I'll give you a minute.
Okay, so someone is saying yes, they either wear the cross or display it in their home. Someone says wear and display the cross. A willow tree is another symbol that's important. Necklaces and bracelets. Yes, someone has a cross necklace.
Okay. Final question.
A peace dove tattoo. I wanted to get that one in too.
Oh, I like that. Okay. Why are signs and symbols useful? What can we do with signs and symbols?
Okay, so Signs and symbols can be a shorthand way of communicating something, a reminder to self or others of value of identity, affiliation, solidarity. It can show what type of person you are. Signs and symbols identify for others. They're shortcuts to communicating. They allow people to see what's important to us without asking, helps others have an idea of the type of person an individual is by visual presence or identification of affiliation. Those are some of the answers we've received.
Okay, those are great answers. As you can see, there are many signs and symbols, including religious and cultural symbols, that may carry a lot of importance to individuals. And people can do a lot of different things with signs and symbols. They can wear them. They can have them as tattoos. I even had someone tell me that she considered her hair to be a symbol of her individuality. If you look on the slide, we have a lot of religious and secular symbols here that can be very meaningful to people. And talking about them is a great way of just exploring the diversity of any given group, as we just saw with our own group. It's also a great way of exploring the meaning of the Olympics because signs and symbols play such an important role, and the games bring together such a diverse range of cultures. So lesson 2 begins with a discussion about the meaning, importance, and usefulness of symbols. The lesson focuses on 2 symbols, the Olympic torch and the Olympic rings. For each Olympics, the Olympic torch is lit in Olympia, Greece, then carried across the world until it arrives in the country where the Olympics are being held on the day that the Olympics begin. During the opening ceremonies, the Olympic flame is placed in the center of the stadium, where it stays lit until the games are over. Its origins lie in ancient Greece, where a fire was kept burning throughout the celebration of the ancient Olympics, commemorating the theft of fire from the Greek god Zeus by Prometheus. It's been part of the modern Olympic Games since 1928, and the torch relay was introduced in 1936. Students might find it interesting to compare the meaning of the Olympic flame with other flames that have special significance to them, such as candles on a kinara or menorah, prayer candles, unity candles, or even birthday candles. The Olympic rings are considered the official symbol of the Olympics. There are 5 Olympic rings, and they are blue, yellow, black, green, and red. They represent the interconnectedness of the 5 regions of the world: Africa, the Americas, Asia, Europe, Australia, and Oceania. At least one of the colors, along with white, appears on the national flag in every country in the world. The Olympic rings represent the union of the world's regions and the meeting of athletes from all around the world at the Olympic Games. The curriculum provides stencils and instructions so that students can create their own Olympic torches and rings to use in their own Olympic Games. And Mark is going to provide you with a link for more information about Olympic symbolism. So let's use the question box again. What are some other symbols of unity, goodwill, or good wishes that you can think of? Again, I'll give you a minute. Can you think of some other symbols of unity, goodwill, or good wishes?
Okay, so I'm trying to remember if I'm seeing these out of order. Um, One response I think is could be wedding rings, handshake, hugs, if I'm reading this in the correct order. And I apologize to everyone if I'm not. There's something a little strange going on with my screen.
Okay, well, all of those would be great examples of symbols of unity, goodwill, or good wishes. You can conclude Lesson 2 with a discussion of these kinds of symbols of unity. Prayer flags like these are a really good example. Many Tibetan and Nepali Buddhists use prayer flags to bring prayers of goodwill and compassion to the world. Prayer flags are colorful panels of rectangular cloth that are tied horizontally in groups of 5 to bless the surrounding countryside and all humans and animals that inhabit it. Tibetans believe the prayers will be blown upward as offerings to the Buddhist deities and will bring benefits to all who hang them, as well as their families, loved ones, neighbors, and all people and animals throughout the world. Prayer flags are usually tied in high places so that the wind will carry the blessings to all beings, and many Tibetans renew their hopes for the world by continually mounting new flags alongside the old. You can give students the opportunity to make similar secular symbols of their own good wishes for the world. They can make pinwheels for peace. Encourage students to identify their wishes for peace, happiness, and other positive things and write them on the pinwheels for the wind to carry throughout the world. The curriculum includes stencils and instructions for making the pinwheels. Students can decorate them as they wish. Mark is going to provide you with a link for more information about pinwheels for peace. At the students' final Olympic Games, each group of students will represent a country. Lesson 4 guides them through the process of researching the country they will represent and creating an interactive display on the country. Throughout this lesson, you can have books, pictures, music, and other materials about the countries on hand. If possible, you can help students locate websites with information about the country. The goal is to provide students with a range of multicultural resources or even to create a multicultural library in your own classroom. So again, use the question box. How can you ensure that you are providing multicultural resources or creating a multicultural library for your students? I'll give you a minute to answer.
Okay, so for whatever reason, this seems to be going in reverse order on my screen. So I do have a response here. By partnering with multicultural organizations, that's one way.
Any other answers? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have another one here. Um, Asking parents of children to do cooking activities in class.
Okay, parents and guest speakers from the community can be a wonderful resource and can give students a great idea of the diversity that exists within every group. Here is a checklist which you may find helpful. In a multicultural library, resources are diverse and from various sources. So this means make sure to include different kinds of resources, not just encyclopedias or textbooks, so that students have access to a variety of voices about a country or culture. Resources represent multiple and unique perspectives. So include storybooks and personal narratives so that different aspects of the culture are included. Guest speakers are also a great way to do that. Allow groups to represent themselves. So allow people from the culture to tell their own story rather than just having the perspective of a textbook. Resources show experts outside of traditional roles. Show the diversity of the culture and show images that challenge stereotypes. And finally, multicultural resources depict both past and present images. Some textbooks seem to be stuck in the past and only show images of people in traditional dress rather than in modern dress. This can perpetuate stereotypical monolithic viewpoints about a culture or country. When students have completed their country study, they can work in groups to create interactive displays like these, combining visual posters with games, music, food, and so on. These can become stations around a room representing the world. The students can make passports and visit each country by walking to the different stations around the room. At each station, the students get their passports stamped. This provides an opportunity for students to teach one another and to record what they learn about each country. It's also an opportunity to invite parents, teachers, and other community members in to support the students' work. Throughout this project, students are working as a team to understand their country, celebrate it, and get ready to represent it in their own Olympics. This helps the students develop Olympic spirit. What do I mean by Olympic spirit? Well, according to the International Olympic Committee, the mission of Olympic spirit is to build a peaceful and better world, which requires mutual understanding with a spirit of friendship, solidarity, and fair play. You can promote Olympic spirit by having students work with their teammates to create patches, flags, and name tags to represent their countries in the final Olympic Games. You can also make banners. The curriculum provides instruction for these projects. In particular, creating flags is a great way to continue the discussion about symbolism. Students can learn and discuss what their country's flag represents. So again, we're going to use the question box. Do you have a favorite mascot? And if so, what does it symbolize? Okay, I am seeing some answers, but like Mark, they seem to be out of order.
Well, I have them, I think, in order. So um, one person said a bulldog, that they grew up with them. Hold on one second. Okay. The bulldog, because the person grew up with them and their family used to breed them. Let's see. Okay, let's see. I apologize. Give me one moment.
I saw a pirate in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah, if you see others, please go ahead, because I'm not seeing them.
Okay, well, I know that I have fond memories of the Panthers, which were my junior high mascot, because I had so much fun at the pep rallies. So lesson 6 is the last unit in, or the last lesson in Unit 2, and it introduces students to the concept of mascots. This lesson teaches about mascots using the examples of the mascots of the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio and the 2014 Winter Olympics and Paralympic Games in Sochi. On the left, you see Vinicius and Tom, who are the official mascots of the Rio 2016 Olympic and Paralympic Games. They have their own backstory. Vinicius is a mixture of Brazilian animals, while Tom is a fusion of all the plants in the Brazilian forests. Their names, which were actually voted on by the public, honor well-known Brazilian bossa nova musicians Vinicius de Moraes and Tom Jobim. Bossa nova is a type of music that combines the sounds of samba and jazz and was developed in Brazil during the 50s and 60s. So in addition to representing the Brazilian fauna and flora, the mascots also connect to the best of Brazil's music. On the right, you see the two mascots from the 2014 Paralympic Games in Sochi, Ray of Life and Snowflake. These mascots also have a story. They both overcame many difficulties to arrive on Earth from a distant planet. Despite their differences, Snowflake and Ray of Light are united through their great sporting abilities and their friendship. They have infinite potential and demonstrate that anything is possible. So after students have learned about these mascots, they can create their own mascots for their own Olympic Games. You can divide them into small cooperative groups and have each group brainstorm what kind of mascot they would like to create. You can ask them to think about a number of discussion questions. What qualities will your mascot represent? Will it be a totally new character or one based on school traditions? What colors and symbols will it have, and why? This discussion provides a great opportunity for the students to reflect on the values they want to celebrate in their own Olympic Games. It's one of the many ways they can get in the spirit of the event and make it their own. If you're working with children in the upper elementary grades, this can be a great opportunity to discuss the power of symbols to unite people or divide them, using the example of sports mascots that are based on stereotypes of indigenous people and use names like warriors, braves, chiefs, Indians, or redskins. You can engage students in a discussion of why some people may find these names and mascots disrespectful. You can ask, do you think that these mascots represent positive images of Native Americans? Do you think that the way that the mascots look and act at games is respectful of Native Americans? How might you feel if someone from your own culture was used as a mascot? This is a discussion that can promote empathy and perspective taking and encourage them to create mascots that unite everyone in the Olympic spirit. We've come to the end of Unit 2, so let's review the takeaways from the webinar. The Olympics are a fun way to practice goodwill, teamwork, and respect. Learning about different cultures and countries helps students to develop respectful curiosity about different languages, beliefs, and customs. And we create a stronger community when we learn about and celebrate differences. Well, we've had some trouble with the question box, but I'm still going to encourage you to write in any questions that you have right now, and we're going to do our best to read them. I'll give you a minute. If we're not able to answer your questions right now, we will answer them in a follow-up email. I know there's a raise your hand feature, which we should be able to use. I'm trying to, here we go. I pulled that up. So if anyone wants to raise their hand, you can do that. Are there any resources you recommend for teaching children about the Middle East? That is something that I think we could provide you some great resources about, but I'd rather do that in a follow-up email where I have some time to give it some thought. Any other questions? The next webinar will be based on Unit 3 of the curriculum, Learning About Wellness. This unit teaches about nutrition and exercise through a multicultural lens, and it includes lessons on various dietary requirements and healthy eating, different methods and utensils for eating, and games and exercises from around the world. There's a lot to look forward to, so we hope you'll join us again. Your feedback enables us to better address educator needs and to provide webinars free of charge. So please take 5 minutes to complete a brief evaluation. Mark is going to put the SurveyMonkey link in the chat box. Also, if you need a certificate of attendance, one can be downloaded from the handout section on your participant panel. So thank you very much for your participation, and we hope we'll see you next time.